So a subscriber sent over to me a very, I think, provocative topic for me to consider for a video. And I originally was going to include this response in a larger video, but as I sat and kind of noodled the topic, it caught my attention. And so I'm actually not going to name the subscriber's name in this video because I don't want anyone, including that person, to think that I am trying to attack them. That's not my gig. But what I am going to do is to take what is a provocative title or topic, and I want to play with it. So it's kind of like content creators' prerogative to be provocative. So I want to have a little bit of fun with it. But this is not an attack on the person that submitted this question. It really is not that. And I think most people know that is not my bag. That is not my bag. I'm all about having fun. I'm all about looking at things, I think, at least from an interesting perspective. And so I want to kind of do that here with the hope that I can spark some thought with people out there. And to some degree or another, this topic is a little bit of a follow-up on some things that I've discussed before in other videos where I've spoken about like keys and what is a key and what constitutes a key. So we're going to touch on that very, very briefly. But the main focus, I think, is going to be on this provocative topic that this person has submitted over to me for consideration. And this person's question really revolves around an app that I think I've been using this app for like 2 years or so. And I have no affiliations with this app in any way, shape, or form. I spoke to the person that owns this app a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, I think. And, was able to better understand the story behind this app. But I have no affiliation with this app at all. And so this is not even a defense of the app. Because I have no vested interest, to be honest with you. I think the app is dope. I use the app. And I might as well just tell you what the app is, right? So the app in question, the application in question is the Key Collector app. And the question that was submitted over to me by the subscriber was the question was basically, do I believe that the Key Collector app is essentially serving a dual purpose? And the dual purpose, at least this was, again, part of my interpretation, is to identify comics that are of value, right? Key comics, while simultaneously depressing the value of what are deemed filler books. So that's the question. Does Key Collector app serve a dual purpose of basically promoting key comics while simultaneously devaluing filler books? And it really is a provocative question. But in it's provocative, especially if you take a step away from the question, right? And you ask yourself, what is a key? And what, pray tell, is a filler book? And I've used the term filler myself. I've used it before. And to some degree or another, I've used it to basically draw a line between a key book, right, and a non-key book. The problem with that is that the term filler is basically waste. This book is a waste. This book is not worthy of a proper term, right? It is just something that fills the gap between major events that happen. And so one could make an argument that every comic that is actually created has some significance to it. Because after all, that is why the comic was actually created. That is why an artist and a writer came together and an inker and a letterer and an editor, right? That is the reason why these individuals came together, was to create something that basically served some purpose, right? The book told a story. It advanced the story. It had some elements in it that pushed the continuum, if you will, forward, right? So you could make the argument that every single comic that has been created essentially serves a purpose and has some significance attached to it. And so when you look at the term key, most people think that keys are comics that something significant happens in. And that's kind of sort of what a filler book is, right? But then they go on to say that a key book is one where something really significant happens, like a birth, like a death, like a first appearance, a second appearance, a cameo appearance, a true first appearance, right? Name your appearance. Those are all keys, right? But there is something significant that actually happens in that story that makes that comic worthy of the term key. But again, if you have a so-called filler book, there are also some significant things that happen in those comics. And if you think about it, like with a retcon, with a talented writer coming along, that writer could suddenly make a filler book and something that happens in a filler book really, really significant. Think about all the things that Jonathan Hickman has been doing, where he is like made Moira McTaggart one of the most interesting characters of the year. No one saw it coming. And I can probably promise you that very few people even knew what Moira McTaggart's first or second appearance actually was. Right? So I guess Moira's first appearance was technically a filler book. But now, because of Jonathan Hickman, that filler book is now suddenly a key book. Interesting. Now, I wonder what happens if, for some reason or another, the comic that Moira first appeared in, which is now probably worth a crazy amount of money, suddenly lost money. Would that first appearance go back to being a filler book? Would that key now revert back to being a filler that no one actually cares about? It's an interesting thing if you think about it, right? Is a filler book a key that is yet to be deemed a key? Is it yet to be deemed a key because no one has retconned it, or because no one has recognized the significance of something that happened in that comic? Or is a filler a non-key simply because the value of that book has not reached a certain threshold? And what is that threshold? Is it $3? Is it $5? Is it $6? Is it $100? When does a comic suddenly become a key? And does that comic maintain its title of a key when that comic suddenly drops below that threshold? It's a provocative question. It really is a provocative question if you think about it. How many of you know what the significance is of Amazing Spider-Man 212? How many of you know what the significance of DC Comics Presents 47 is? What about Hulk 271? How about Amazing Spider-Man 210? Does anybody know the significance of those books? Amazing Spider-Man 210 is the first appearance of Madam Web. That book, a couple of months ago, probably a filler book that no one cared about other than a couple of people who knew who Madam Web was, and of people like me that are working on a full run of Amazing Spider-Man. When you saw that book, you were like, I need it because I need it for my run, right? But what happens with the first appearance of Madam Web if she doesn't appear in a movie or a cartoon or whatever the current speculation hype is around her? What happens? Does that book suddenly slip back into obscurity? Does that key now suddenly become nothing more than a filler book? Or are all of these books just treasures, right? Are all of these books just works of creation that should be respected by the comic book community, regardless of their values, regardless of whether they are deemed to be a key or not? Because something happens in these comics. A story is being told. A creation has been delivered by a writer, an artist, an inker, a letterer, an editor, etc., etc. They have come together to create these things. The first appearance of Hydro Man, Amazing Spider-Man 212. That book was super hot a while ago. And is it no longer a key? Is it no longer something that people want to buy, that people want to have in their collections? Incredible Hulk 271, the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon. I don't know that book has come down in value given what is happening with the Rocket Raccoon and Guardians of the Galaxy and all that stuff. But again, what happens if they stop making Guardians of the Galaxy? The movie is delayed a couple of more years because James Gunn is off doing his thing. Does that book suddenly fall back into obscurity and suddenly become a filler book that is treated like a red-headed stepchild? I don't know. DC Comics Presents 47. Did anyone guess that was actually, I think it's the first appearance of Masters of the Universe, He-Man? I honestly did not know that. But again, that's a book that has some significance. That, again, does it fall back into obscurity, or is it now suddenly a hot book because they're talking about doing some things with He-Man now? But getting back to the topic at hand of whether Key Collector app devalues filler books, I struggle with that. I struggle with the notion of that because, in my mind, Key Collector app is an app that helps me to basically identify comics that have some significance. I don't necessarily look at Key Collector app for values. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong. It is my understanding that basically Key Collector app is a rolling 3-month average of value. So it's not an up-to-date price guide like some of the price guides that I've talked about in other videos. It is a rolling 3-month average. And so you could be 3 months behind the latest spec book, and you could be looking in Key Collector app, and if that story has been retconned recently, you might not find it in Key Collector app. Or if you found it in Key Collector app, would it have the prices that reflect the current market trends? So when I think about Key Collector app, I think about this app for the purpose of helping me to identify in the wild, when I'm out hunting, the significance of comics. I don't necessarily look at it as a keeper of value. And so I struggle with the idea of it devaluing comics because it's not a price guide. And that is also not what Key Collector app is all about. Key Collector app is about, at least in my mind, again, let me also caveat this with, I don't have the paid version. I don't have the paid version of the Key Collector app. I use the free version, and I can probably tell you I have never really scrolled down to click on any of those apps or those little bubbles further down the screen. I haven't clicked on any of those things, I'm gonna be honest with you, and only just today have I even scrolled down to see what else is there. I use Key Collector app in a very narrow way, and it serves my purposes just fine. But I personally think that Key Collector app is great, and I struggle with this idea of it depressing an app depressing the value of comics. If anyone is depressing or holding down the values of filler books, it is probably comic book collectors. We are probably the ones that are devaluing filler books because we are so focused on the keys. Show me the keys. Where are the keys? Do you have keys? It doesn't matter what key you have. I need to see your keys. I actually was in a comic shop, and that's basically what somebody said. They were like, I don't know what I want. I just want to see your keys. But isn't every comic a key? We have a plethora of comic keys for you to choose from, and there are the long boxes right over there. A through Z have at our keys. If I don't think an app, in my opinion, can depress or devalue comic books, I think that the only thing that can do that is us, because we are not putting the significance on these creations maybe the way that we should. I should also say that this is completely my opinion. All of this is my opinion that I'm sharing in this recording here. So those are my thoughts. I like Key Collector app. I think it is a fantastic resource that I am glad that someone actually created, because it helps me tremendously when I am out there hunting for comics and I'm looking at things and I'm like, I think I recognize this book, but I honestly cannot remember, right? There are so many titles, so many great comics that are out there. It is impossible to remember them all. So shout out to Nick, shout out to Key Collector app. Your app is dope. But again, I am very curious to hear what other people's thoughts are on this topic. And I've thrown a lot out there, around keys, around fillers, and the notion that one might be the other, and could the first one be the second one? And possibly I just confused everybody with that. Again, it is the creator's prerogative. But I am definitely interested to hear what folks think about this, right? Do you think that it's possible for an app to devalue something? I mean, I'm a big fan of, if you can make a strong enough argument, I can get on board with it. Even if I disagree with you, I can get on board with your point of view if you can make a compelling argument. But I am definitely interested to hear what people have to say about this. As always, I am interested to hear what people think. So I look forward to reading your comments in the comment section. Certainly, if you guys enjoyed this video, right? If you enjoyed this video, I definitely want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up. If you are listening to this on one of the podcast services, I definitely want to invite you to the YouTube channel, Regie Collects. Come on over here, check it out. You can see my face. You can check out all of the other wonderful content, because there is very little, in air quotes, very little content on the podcast. There is a whole lot more content over on the YouTube channel, somewhere between 5 to 8 videos per week for months on end is what is over there. But if you are on the YouTube channel already, I definitely want to encourage you guys to give this video a thumbs up, to leave a comment behind so that we can mix it up in the comment section. And certainly, if any of you have any questions, comments, or thoughts for me, don't hesitate to reach out to me at RegieCollects on Instagram and RegieCollects@gmail.com. Take care.